There we go. Okay, so let me get down through some slides. Okay, so let's stop here on this slide. So last week we learned that when we're looking at gait, it's often, well, not often, it's really always best if you always analyze their gait from the side and then from the posterior view. Now you might see most of your deviations on your side view, but you'll also see some of them from your lateral, from your posterior or your anterior view as well. Again, one stride is one complete gait cycle of one leg, and it's made of swing phase and stance phase. Okay. Let me let some people in. There we go. Okay. So let's go ahead and separate these again. So let's just talk about stance for a second, because that's the one that has the biggest, or it has the most things going on. Okay. So at first, we're going to have initial contact. And that's when the heel first hits the ground, okay? So during stance, we go into initial contact. And that's your only period of double limb support. And that lasts not even a second, split second, okay? After initial contact of the heel, the foot goes flat, and then we go into loading response or weight acceptance. Same terms, meaning the same thing. That means that that leg is getting ready to bear the weight of the full body, okay? At this point, the swing leg is starting to come up off the ground. Okay, now let's keep going to single limb support. And now we're at mid stance. So now the stance leg is directly under the body, and 100% of the body weight is on that one leg. The other leg is in mid swing at this point. Okay, so after mid stance, we straighten our knee out, and then we go into terminal stance, and that's right before the heel touches the ground. Okay. I'm sorry, that's right after the toes. I'm sorry, I said that backwards. Terminal stance is right when the heel starts to pick up off the floor and the toes are barely touching the ground, just about to push off. Sorry, I said that backwards. And then we go into yet another phase of double limb support. And that's when the stance leg is in pre-swing, where the toes are pushing off that leg and starting to push the calf, and the toes are working together to push the leg forward. And that's the end of the stance phase. Okay. Now let's take that same leg and talk about it and take it through swing phase. And then we're going to watch some videos. Okay. So let's go back to the end of stance first, because this is all just in one chain that just keeps going. So in stance phase, you've got your pre-swing, your toes are touching the ground, your heel's in the air, you're pushing yourself off. And then you go into initial swing. That's when those toes first lift off the ground and your leg is first picking itself up off the floor. That's initial swing. Okay. Then you go through mid swing, you bend your knee a little bit more to clear it so that it doesn't drag the floor. And then terminal swing is just the very second before your heel hits the ground again to come in contact with the ground. All initial swing, mid swing, and terminal swing are all part of limb advancement. Okay, so if the way this chart is confusing, you could actually, I can see it turned another way and have stance and swing up at the top of the page, and then you lower and then you list things down like that. I could see that chart being more helpful like this, but when I put it together on the PowerPoint, I had to do it like this to make it fit, so sorry. Whoops. Okay, so instead of going through this whole chart again, which can makes you go crazy, I thought we would learn all this stuff via video. Okay, so let me get out of the PowerPoint, stop share. Okay, so I've got several YouTube links here that we're going to watch, and bear with me. I've tried picking some out that they start off analyzing. We're going to talk about normal gait first, and then we'll start talking about pathological gait and those things that you would look for. Okay. Okay. So let me go to the Chrome. Let me find the one I want. Okay, this first one it's real. There's a lot of colors and it's real flashy, so bear with me. But this we haven't really talked about the muscles that go with gait yet. So let's talk about the muscles. Now I've slowed this gait video down to like 0.25 its normal speed so we can watch it in slow motion, because we've got to watch this in slow motion. And that music sounds really creepy in slow motion, sorry. Here we go. Okay. So what I want you to do, this is just a person walking, and every time, and they've got the right leg and the left leg, okay, analyzed. And what they're doing, they're showing an EMG, electrical activity in those muscles during every phase of gait, okay? Now, if you will notice, they're doing it on both legs at the same time. Well, that's just way too much to learn for a human mind to understand. So let's look at one leg. So let me get to let's get to a better, okay. So let's take this is the left leg here. Okay, the left leg. Can anybody tell me what phase, and you can look through your notes if you want to. Let's say these toes of this skeleton of this man just left the ground. Okay, so they just left the ground, and now the foot is in the air. So what phase of gait is this person in on their left leg? Can anybody tell me?
Mid stance?
No, you're in mid stance on the right leg, on this leg. We're looking at their left leg.
The left toe off.
So it's either toe off or initial swing. Either one, they mean the same thing. Very good. Very good. Now let's see if I can get it to go a little bit further. Okay. Now what would you say this is in? The left leg. We said it was an initial swing back here. So where does it have to be here in the middle? Middle gives it away.
Mid stance.
Not mid stance, but mid swing. Because we just went initial swing with this leg, and then we swung forward to mid swing. Okay. Now let's go a little bit further. And now I stopped it a little late, but again, on the left leg, what phase would this be in?
Terminal swing.
Terminal swing would be right before it hit the ground, which is where I meant to hit pause, and then it kept going. So what did it move from, Jackie? You said terminal swing, which you were right. So, but what did it, after terminal swing, what did it go into?
Terminal stance.
No, it's going into the stance phase, but it's going into the beginning of stance phase.
Initial contact.
Initial contact, that's right. Initial contact or foot or a heel strike would be this side. So one thing that I think is what might, if y'all are and I'm going to share this video with y'all. I want you to know, use this video and play it at you can, if you go over here on the settings button on YouTube, you can change, look how fast it goes when I play it normally. No, please don't look at that because you will be way too confused. I want you to slow it down as slow as it'll go. And then pause it at certain sections and then quiz yourself to say, okay, what stance or what phase is this leg in right now? So let's do another practice run of those, okay? And remember, we're only looking at one leg at a time, okay? So let me get this to a place where I want it. Okay, so let's look at the right leg this time. Okay, right leg. Okay, and if you want to, if you even want to try to take it even a step further, you can look at the muscle activity over on this side to give you a hint as to what is going on. Okay, so in this side, we're looking at the right leg. This person, this is the front, this is the back, and he's walking this way on the treadmill. Okay, so one leg is in complete contact with the ground. This leg has got the toes touching the ground, but the heel is up off the ground. So does anybody have a name or know what we would call this phase? And I will tell you it is stance, but what would we call this phase of stance? Terminal stance. If y'all can do this, because I keep seeing chat numbers pop up, but I have to go to another window to look at those. Can somebody just say them out loud, please? Yes, y'all are getting it right. It's terminal stance. Okay. Now, look at this, and this only is going to make sense if you can see the big picture. In terminal stance, if you can picture that terminal stance is your body, is your leg pushing you forward, propelling you forward, look at the muscles that are active, that are color-coded in brighter red right now. You've got your gluteus maximus, which is shown right here. The gluteus maximus is on, and it's pushing your hip forward. And you've got your triceps surae. Well, another name for your triceps surae are your gastroc and soleus, okay? So gastroc and soleus and your toe flexors, even your intrinsic toe flexors, those are on bright red here, and they're working to plantar flex the ankle to push you forward. So it's almost like it's springing you forward. So the glute max and the gastroc and soleus and the toe flexors are pushing you forward. Okay, and that's in terminal stance or pre-swing. Let me get it a little bit closer. Now, let's stop here. Okay, let's still look at the right leg. Okay, let's see if I can back this up a tad. Well, no. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now we're in mid-swing on this side, okay? We're in swing on the right side. Okay, let's look at the muscles on the right side. We've got our iliopsoas is on, and what is the iliopsoas doing? During swing phase, what is the job of the iliopsoas? Y'all know this, you just had your O's and I's and A's and OI's and N's.
Hip flexion.
Hip flexion, very good. So see, you got to put all that stuff together now. Hip flexion. Okay, so the iliopsoas is bringing the leg forward. Look at the quads. The quadriceps are on. Why do you think the quadriceps are on in this period?
Is it about to extend the knee?
Okay, so there's two correct answers, and I've already, and somebody gave it to me in chat, and then Valerie said it too. Okay, so one is the rectus. Remember, the rectus femoris is not only a knee extender, but it's also a hip flexor. So the rectus femoris, even though it's grouped in with the quads, is on, and it's helping flex your hip forward. Now, Valerie said the rest of the quads are on because they're getting ready to extend the knee in order to accept weight onto the leg. Because if the quads didn't come on and do that, the knee would stay flexed and you would just fall. Okay. Now, there's also one other thing I would like to point out here, and I didn't stop. If I could get the video to stop a little bit further back. There we go. In this part of swing, you can see that the hamstrings are on. The hamstrings are going to be on during flexion because they're clearing the leg so that it doesn't drag the floor. I think I went too far back. Okay. So now, too far forward. Okay. So now we are, let's say, because of where I stopped the video and I can't get it to stop just right, let's say that now the right leg is in between, it's leaving mid swing, about to go into terminal swing, about to go into initial contact. So iliopsoas is on, quads are on to get ready to extend the knee, to hold it stable so that you don't buckle. Look what's coming on here, your tibialis anterior. Okay, why does somebody have a guess, and just say it out loud? Why would the tibialis anterior need to be on right here? If we can just swing our leg forward from the hip and the knee, why do we need the tibialis anterior to come on?
To dorsiflex the foot.
Okay, so you're right, to dorsiflex the foot, but why do we need the foot to dorsiflex?
So we can get the heel strike.
So you can get the heel strike, very good. And because if you didn't dorsiflex your ankle, you would drag your toes along the ground during the whole mid-swing phase. And then, like, I think it was Sarah that might have said it, if I recognized her voice, then you wouldn't be able to get into initial contact as well with your heel. So very good, y'all. Y'all are getting it. So you can use this video. Let me go back. Let's see. And now we've entered stance on the right leg. And now look at everything that's on. All of the quad muscles are on. And all of the hamstring muscles are on. And the glutes are on. So does anybody, I know we've talked about the term a long time ago. Does anybody remember the term when an agonist and an antagonist group of muscles are on at the same time?
To balance each other out.
They are balancing each other out, but there's a word. Does anybody remember what the word is called?
Is it synergist?
Well, it's not synergist. No, you're on the right track, but you're in the wrong semester. It's just co-contraction is what I'm going for. So, but I think it was Jackie that said it. They were balancing each other out. So the quad sometimes right here in mid stance. Let's say this is in mid stance. The quads and the hamstrings and the glutes are going to be on all at the same time in order to keep the person upright. So the quads are on to keep the knee straight from buckling and to keep you from falling, while the glutes and the hamstrings are pulling your leg back to propel you forward. Okay. Now, I usually don't go this deep into the muscular part of gait in this course. I usually save that for next semester, but I'm trying something different to try to help it make more sense in this semester. So I don't want to lose anybody on this. So if the muscle part activity is what's, if that's confusing you right now, go back to the PowerPoint where the slides are just showing where the skeleton is hitting, okay? And go by that, because I would rather you know where the joints are in space right now before what the muscles are doing. Okay, so that's enough of that video. So did I lose anybody completely with that one? It is a little confusing one. Okay, let me stop it. Okay, now what I want to look at are the different angles that gait goes through. Okay, so let me again share. Oops, I don't know what's happening. Sorry, I know the video started playing without me meaning for it to happen. Okay, share screen. Okay, so we're going to be looking at this guy walking on a treadmill. I'm going to turn this down to 1/4 of the speed. And this is his left leg, okay? He's walking forward on the treadmill. We're only going to look at the left leg here, okay? And I'm going to stop this along the way. I'm sorry about the sound. It's slowing the sound down too. Okay, so just get a feel for what he's doing. Okay, here we go. We're going to start talking about angles now. So, I'm going to pause the video here. This is initial contact. I think everybody could agree with that. This is initial contact. Okay, you don't have to tell me, I don't want to know a number. I just want to know a position. What position is the left hip in at initial contact?
Flexion.
I'll give you some, say it again.
Flexion.
It's in flexion. Very good. Okay, so the hip is in flexion at initial contact. What position is the knee in at initial contact?
Extension.
Extension. Okay. So does that makes sense because the hip is still swinging our leg forward so we can catch ourselves, and the knee is extended so that our knee doesn't buckle and we don't fall. Okay. Now look at the ankle. What position is the ankle in?
Dorsiflexion.
You could argue two things. You could say it's either in dorsiflexion or it's in a neutral position. Now, normally in gait, people are a little bit different. We typically swing forward with around 0 to 5 degrees of dorsiflexion. So in this instance right here, I would take that correctly if you said neutral, like they're neutral between dorsiflexion and plantar flexion, they're right in the middle, or they're slightly dorsiflexed. Okay, so very good. Now let's go a little bit further. And they're going to give us those angles here. They're going to tell us the range of motion. You'll have to know this for the next semester, but not this semester. Okay, and now we're going into loading response. Okay, now here first they're talking about the muscles that are on again. We already talked about that. Now let's get to loading response. Okay, so what position is the hip in this position? Not
Still in flexion.
Still flexion, but do you see that it's not as much flexion? That it's less flexion because the leg is on its way into extension. Does that make sense? Because the leg is constantly moving. So as soon as it goes forward and hits the treadmill, it's going to start extending to go backwards. Okay. Now look at the knee. What position is the knee in? It's not a straight line.
It looks like slight flexion.
It's slight flexion. Usually in loading your response, you're in about 5 degrees of flexion. Okay. And then what about the ankle? I'll tell you the ankle is going to be in slight plantar flexion, or it may still be in neutral here. It just depends on the person. Okay, so they're going to give us the angles and then the muscles. Okay. Now we'll go into mid stance, and let me pause it. Okay. So what position is the hip in this position? Well, it's telling you, never mind. I'll pause it. Okay. So the hip is at mid stance. The hip is in 0 degrees. It's neither flexed nor extended. Okay. So it's at 0 degrees. The knee is flexed about 5 degrees. And what do you see about your ankle now? What's happening at the ankle?
It's starting to go into some kind of something.
You're right. It's moving from neutral into what? What's going to happen in the next stage? What position will that ankle be?
Dorsiflexion.
Dorsiflexion, right. So this is the key. Y'all are picking it up now. From mid stance, the foot is moving from either slightly plantar flexed or dorsiflexion. It's moving to a more dorsiflexed position. Okay. Now let me play it. Let's get to the next section. Okay, terminal stance. Hip is in 20. I didn't mean to, I meant to stop it before the letters came up. Sorry, the answer's there. Well, now our hip is in 20 degrees of extension and the knee is at 0 degrees of extension. So the glutes are really working hard here to keep us, to propel our leg back. Okay. What do you notice here about the foot? It might be kind of hard to see on your little screen. On my screen, I can see that the foot is in slight dorsiflexion and the heel is just starting to come up. So this would be terminal stance. And if I can get it to move just a little bit further, we'll see pre-swing. And now we're in pre-swing, okay? So now you can see where we're in double limb support. The left leg, the toes are still on the ground, but the heel has come off, okay? So we're calling this terminal stance. Knee is in a little bit of flexion and the hip is in a little bit of extension, but the hip is moving forward now, okay? What's gonna, can somebody tell me, somebody just take a guess at the ankle. What's gonna happen if I move the cursor and let the video keep playing? What's gonna happen next at the ankle?
It's going to go into plantar flexion
Okay, why is it gonna go into plantar flexion?
because it's going to move forward to hit the
Yes,
ground.
it's got to move your foot forward. Bingo. Okay, what's going to happen with the knee in this position as it's moving from terminal stance to mid stance? What happens? I'm sorry, as it moves from, as it moves from terminal swing, terminal stance and pre-swing to mid swing, what's going to happen to it? Think about it. The leg is going forward.
The knee is going to extend.
So the leg is going forward here. So we're picking this leg up to go forward. So if we extended, if we kept the knee extended, what would happen here?
Oh, you trip on your toes. So
You would trip on your toes. So actually the knee is going to go into flexion. So let's see if we can see that. Let me speed it up a little bit because we're just about done with this one. Just showing you the muscles again. And then there's that knee flexion and that plantar flexion to push you forward. And then the whole cycle goes into swing phase and starts over again. Okay. So let me get out of this video. And I will share this video with you all too. Okay. Now, the next video is not a lot of analysis. The next video is giving you examples of pathological gait, okay? So this is a physician that's just demonstrating some of these gaits. And these are some of the gait deviations that you may see out there. Hold on just a second. Did I share that with y'all? I didn't share that with y'all. Okay, here we go. I think I know how to work Zoom after a year.
I'm now going to demonstrate a couple of gaits. It would be a great shame for a patient to come to us with an abnormal gait and for us to send the patient for testing or consultation when the diagnosis might be fairly evident in the gait. The most common gait you'll see is the hemiplegic gait, and this is one that you see in hemiplegia where the arm is typically in this posture and the leg on the affected side is typically somewhat stiff, and they will then have a gait that looks something like this. And the characteristic of the gait is the circumduction of the foot. The fact that the foot is making a circle like that is what makes this gait so characteristic. If the condition is mild, the hand may not be flexed up like that, and the only manifestation might just be a little circumduction, and the hand may not be swinging normally the way the other hand swings. So that is called the hemiplegic gait. It's important to understand why they do what they do. When you cut the pyramidal tract on the left side, you have abnormalities of tone that manifest on the right side. So you develop flexion hypertonia in the upper limb and extensor hypertonia in the lower limb. And that accounts for the leg being like that and the hand being like this. In addition, they develop much more distal weakness than proximal weakness. Their shoulder is strong, the fingers are very weak, the thigh is strong, but the foot is weak, and so they have foot drop. And so the circumduction comes about because A, they have extensor hypertonia, so the leg is stiff. Otherwise, they could just step like this, they could go like this. And B, because they have foot drop, because they have weakness distally, they can't lift up the leg and step like that, so they wind up circumducting. So this is the most common gait we will see around here probably. It's called the hemiplegic gait. Another gait that we would commonly identify is the gait of Parkinson's disease. It's a posture that's characterized by universal flexion. Every joint is flexed, and the patient typically will take very small steps. This is called a festinating gait. The French call it the marche à petits pas, the walk of little steps. And there might also be an associated tremor with the gait. The patient may have a myriad of other abnormalities related to the Parkinson's that we're not going to cover in this session. Another gait that's very helpful to recognize, and it may be one that you're all familiar with from watching police videos and hopefully not from personal experience, is the cerebellar gait. The cerebellar gait is characterized by a broad stand and by a wide staggering quality to it. People will tend to fall towards the side of their illness. So if the illness is in the cerebellar hemisphere on the left, they might fall in that direction. When asked to stand still, their trunk may sway like this, and that is called titubation. And obviously they would have problems with all the other cerebellar tests. One caveat, many people think of the Romberg test as being a test of cerebellar disease. The Romberg test has nothing to do with the cerebellum. The cerebellar patient is already swaying, and it gets a lot worse when you have them close their eyes. But the Romberg test is really a test of proprioception. When you and I are standing like this with our eyes open, we are getting signals from our joints to tell us where we are in space. If, however, you have a problem with proprioception because of your peripheral nerves or posterior columns, then you're relying on your eyes. Hemiplegic gait is the gait that's commonly seen in cerebral palsy. It's a diplegic gait, if you will, with hemiplegia on both sides. And it's a gait that I'm sure you've seen often in children and in adults affected by this from childhood. Typically, the patients have extensor spasm and almost seem to be walking on tiptoe. And although they have some circumduction, they have a lot of adductor spasm that keeps their feet close together. So they tend to be walking on tiptoe. The arm is flexed like this, and the adduction is a prominent feature. In fact, in some parts of the world where children do not get adductor releases, you might actually see a scissors gait, where the leg swings all the way over to the other side. And again, that is another manifestation of the diplegic gait. I want to talk about a gait that happens in people with myopathy.
then I've got one more video to share with y'all. Just a short one.
Hey guys, in this video, we are going to be looking at gait deviations. In a previous video, we looked at the normal gait cycle. You need to master that.
I'm gonna speed up a little bit.
With your MMT scores. With this, obviously, your leg's going to be longer. Now, this itself is not a deviation because that you necessarily see by itself. Because if you did, I'd be tripping all the time. So what happens is you create a deviation to compensate for that inability to dorsiflex. And you'll see that a lot of times with a high steppage gait. And it'll look like this. So you see I don't have heel strike coming down on my toes, and I have extra hip flexion. So you see this is high steppage gait caused by the foot drop. Another gait pattern that you might see as a compensation is circumduction, coming out to the side. Circumduction also, if I can't flex the knee, a lot of times you'll see that one. Also, if I have weak hip flexors, if I can't flex my hip, I'm going to circumduct as well. And then another one is called vaulting, where I'm going to lift up on this so that I can have some clearance for this swing like here. Go to the side, see this, just like that. I don't have very big calves, so my heel raise is pretty low. So that's probably not a compensation or a deviation I'd be doing. And then you have hip hike, where I'm going to literally hike this hip up to try to get the leg shorter so that I can swing it through. So this is some swing leg issues. Then you have, besides foot drop and those deviations, you have what's called foot slap. And this one, you have heel strike, but you don't have eccentric control into foot flat. So what you'll see is heel strike, slap, heel strike, slap. And that's foot slap, which means anterior tib getting weak, we're going to be having foot drop pretty soon. Now we have the weakness deviations. So if I have a weak quad, again with heel strike, my quad should be contracting eccentrically, or I'm going to fall forward. So what am I going to do? I'm going to lean forward to slam that knee back into extension, which obviously isn't good because we're not dealing with the quad issue of strength, but we're also hyperextending and stretching out that posterior capsule, which is going to lead to a host of other knee problems. All right. So I had to lean forward to push into extension. Now, what about a weak glute max gait? Lean back on those glutes because my glutes keep me from falling forward. So if they're weak, I'm going to go ahead and lean back on that Y ligament, walk around nice and relaxed like this. Just leaning back. That is your weak glute max gait. Then we have the Trendelenburg gait pattern.
Get out of that.
Remember, positive Trendelenburg sign, standing on one leg, contralateral dropping of the pelvis. Okay? So with this,
okay, so I showed you a lot of videos today, so hopefully that wasn't too out in center field and I didn't go over anybody's heads too much. I did want to spend 2 weeks on gait, and I don't expect you all to be perfect analyzers of gait right now. And honestly, don't feel like you have to be, because you really have to master normal gait mechanics first, okay? So what I want you to do, I've got an assignment for today, and it'll be due by the end of the day today. Up in the assignments folder, I've got a video that I took of myself yesterday on the treadmill. And I've got a lateral view of me walking and a posterior view of me walking, okay? Now, in each of those videos, I start off, let me give you a caveat here. I start off walking normally, and then I start showing a few gait deviations, okay? Nothing too crazy or anything, but just a couple of things. What I want you to do, and the instructions are written for you, from the posterior view, I want you to show me 1 to 2 things that you see. that would be wrong with my gait. Now, even if you look through the book and you know it's wrong, it's a deviation, but you don't know the name of it, that's okay. Just write down what you see and why it's wrong. As long as you do that, that lets me know that you understand, okay? So if you don't know the name of the deviation, just write down what you see. And they're not any of them too hard. Some of them are obvious. Some of them you have to really pay attention to, okay? So go, and I've got a rubric that's up to let you know how many you need to pick. So if you're going by the rubric and you can't find enough, then contact me because it's my video and I know what I'm doing, so I can let you see, or I can help you with it, okay? So and that assignment is that link is already up on YouTube. It's a YouTube link, and you've got a submission link to it too as well. Any major, I mean, I know there's probably a lot of questions after going over gait, but are there any pertinent big time questions before we go that would help that may help somebody else too?
Mr. Allen, I have
Yes.
a question about the gait analysis project thingy.
Yes.
Have you spoken about that already?
That's what I just got done talking about.
Oh, that's what that is? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're
just
welcome.
clearing that up.
Yeah, the gait analysis project is what I was just talking about. So, anything else?
What time will that assignment be due?
By midnight. It's only 2 questions. And you can write it out as a sentence. You can make me a chart. You can make me bullet points. I don't care, just as long as you give me the information. All right, guys. Well, if that's not it, then y'all can leave. I will see you tomorrow then, if those of you that are here.
Thank you.